Hey guys, it's Lotus and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to continue on with our read-along of Erha. Let's jump right into it. Chapter 90. This venerable one's idiom explanation is just fine. It was already noon by the time Chua Ning finally woke up. The tapir fragrance dew was certainly very effective, and he managed to get a full night's rest, undisturbed by dreams. Yawning, he sat up slowly. Moran? That disciple of his loved to sleep in far more than he did, so it was a surprise when he couldn't find him still on his floor bed. Chua Ning blinked, then tried calling for him again. No reply. He stood and smoothed down his robes, putting up the wispy strands of his long hair while walking over to the sectioned-off front room. Steam rose from behind the screen divider that was elegantly painted with the image of wild birds soaring through clouds woven between mountain peaks, as if there was someone bathing behind it. Moran. Standing on this side of the divider, Chua Ning tried again. Still no reply. Growing suspicious, Chua Ning knocked on the wooden frame of the divider. After several attempts with no response still, he finally walked around to the other side of the divider with furrowed brows. This part of the room was specifically for washing and bathing, and there was a large bath barrel made of camphor wood right in the middle. Chua Ning glanced hastily over it. It was filled with hot, steamy water and floating with bath herbs set out by the inn earlier, but there was no one to be seen. But, looking around again, Moran's clothes were folded neatly over the wooden frame. He couldn't possibly have bathed and then ran out naked, right? Chua Ning's temples throbbed as he shoved the terrifying thought aside. Lips pressed tightly together and face slightly ashen. He turned and was just about to leave when a glug-glug sound came from behind him. Chua Ning looked back to see bubbles rising to the water surface from under all the herbs and petals floating in the barrel. There's someone inside? No sooner had the thought crossed his mind when a naked young man sprung up from the barrel with a splash like a dragon soaring out from the water. Chua Ning was so startled that he subconsciously backed up 2 steps. It seemed he was holding his breath underwater earlier, and so didn't hear Chua Ning calling for him from the outside. Standing up from the water when he couldn't hold it any longer, the upper half of his body was fully exposed while he shook the water from his hair like a dog drying itself. All of it splashed right onto Chua Ning's robes. Moran! Ah! He froze in the middle of shaking his head, eyes opening wide and round, clearly not having expected him to be there when he came out of the water. He gasped, Shijun! You... His eyes swept across the young man's well-proportioned figure, with shoulders that had already become quite broad, the lines of his body firm and defined, supple and youthfully taut. Droplets of water followed the contours of his toned chest, gathering into little rivulets that trickled slowly down, sparkling and dazzling under the sunlight. He looked just like a beautiful merman, half out of the water, eyes watery and glistening, a couple of petals in his wet hair that clung to his body. Moran wiped the water off his face and moved toward Chua Ning's direction with a grin, shoulder blades flexing like a leopard as he folded his arms over the edge of the bath barrel and tilted his head up to beam brightly at him. Chua Ning found himself a little dizzy and his face a little warm, acting on instinct. What are you doing? Taking a bath. In the morning? Heh. His conscience was a bit guilty. He was actually rinsing off with cold water, trying to put out the fire in his loins. Moran. Okay, trying to put out the fire in his loins. It worked well enough, but then, since he had already stripped anyway, he felt like he might as well take a bath too. The soak put him in a good mood, so he dived down to practice holding his breath. He certainly hadn't expected Chua Ning to wander in like this. What's that goofy smile for? Chua Ning knit his brows, trying to cover up the heat steaming his brains with the cool tone of his voice. Why didn't you wake me up if you were up early, messing around over here by yourself like this, throwing your clothes all over the place? Where are your man? Shijun, you got some water here. There was a splash as he lifted his hand to wipe Chua Ning's cheek. Nurse. Moran laughed. He forgot that his hand was wet too and would only get even more water on Chua Ning's cheek. Chua Ning stood frozen in place, the air around him going down several degrees in temperature. His face was strained and his lips were pressed together, only his eyelashes quivering occasionally. It was like he was trying to train a hunting dog, only to get nuzzled by the crafty pup instead. Get out and get dressed. We have to head back to the sect. In the end, Chuaning threw these words out with a cold expression and left with a swish of his sleeves. But where Moran couldn't see, the tips of his ears were red. Just like how, where he couldn't see, a pair of dewy, complicated eyes, still tinged with yearning, stared helplessly after him as he left, all the way until he disappeared behind a corner. Ah, Moran's got yearning eyes. And Moran denies that he's in love with Chuaning. I see you. Okay. The cute smile vanished off Moran's face to be replaced with frustration. He smacked the water in annoyance, then scooped some to scrub forcefully at his face. What the actual hell? What was wrong with him today? All he did was look at him a little while bathing, touching his face briefly. How had he only just managed to suppress his arousal, and now he's hard again? Moran! Why did it take you so long to just get dressed? Chuaning turned toward him from where he stood by the window, his robes drifting gently in the breeze and fine strands of hair softly caressing his jade-like cheeks as he chided with exasperation in his voice. Moran coughed and mumbled vaguely. I was drying my hair with the spell, but not very good at it, so it took a while. Sorry to keep Shijun waiting. A bit surprised by the uncharacteristic propriety of his words, Chuaning shot him another glance before saying, Go get packed since you're done washing. Then we can go rent a boat. I don't feel like riding swords, and I'm tired of horses too. So let's go by water, enjoy some sights on the way. Okay, sounds good. Moran didn't even dare look at him for too long, coughing a couple more times as cover. Chuaning frowned. What's wrong with your throat? Nothing. He turned hastily to go pack. Then they stopped at a store to pick up some snacks and dry food for the trip before heading to the docks to rent a vessel. They went down the Yangtze River, and whenever they came across impassable areas, they would expand the wooden wings of the boat and soar through the sky on a magical draft instead. The travel wasn't fast, but it was peaceful and relaxing. 8 days later, they arrived at Sisheng Peak, the wooden boat coming down to dock by the mountain gate. Moran lifted the bamboo curtain for Chuaning to step out from the cabin first, before following after. It was late at night, and the moon hung bright overhead. Yu Heng Elder had already written to Xue Zhengyang before with explicit instructions to not send a reception, so they didn't meet with anyone until they'd already climbed up the stairs to the main gate, where there were 4 disciples guarding the entrance. Yu Heng Elder! Mo Gongzi! For some reason, panic flashed across the faces of the disciples at the sight of them. Before they could react, the 4 of them dropped to their knees on the ground, looking up as they entreated urgently. Elder, Gongzi, there are people inside right now seeking retribution against you. The sect leader sent a messenger bird to tell you two to keep away for now, but looks like that fat bird wasn't fast enough. Please go hide out at Wuchang town for a bit. Definitely don't go inside right now. Chuaning narrowed his eyes. What exactly is the matter to have you all this panicked? It's people from the upper cultivation realm. They're accusing Elder of demonic cultivation and want to take you to Tianyin Pavilion for an inquiry. Tianyin Pavilion? Moran repeated, alarmed. Isn't that the prison collectively set up by the 10 great sects, especially reserved for only the most heinous of criminals? That's the one! They're here about that incident at Butterfly Town. A female disciple among the 4 said anxiously, Does the Elder still remember? That time when you were caned as punishment? That can't have been anything more than misuse of cultivation techniques or embroiling ordinary people, at most. Besides, Shijun has already accepted punishment for it. Why did they suddenly bring that old affair up again? And even going so far as to involve Tianyin Pavilion? Moran frowned. And what's this about demonic cultivation? We don't know the details either, but we have heard that every single person at Butterfly Town died overnight, killed by some half-ghost, half-deity thing that seemed to be doing someone's bidding. The ghost deity is exceedingly powerful, and the average wandering cultivator definitely wouldn't be able to order her about, so those people from the upper cultivation realm are suspecting Yu Heng Elder of having done it. Chuaning, ... Huh, Moran laughed, and there I was getting worried. That's just a simple misunderstanding. Easy enough to explain away. There's no need to hide. He turned to grin at Chuaning. Shijun, can you believe these people? If you expel some small fiend, they'll say you're taking opportunities from the younger ones. And if you purge a major demon, they'll accuse you of practicing demonic cultivation and keeping some ghost deity to do your bidding. At this rate, we'd best stop doing anything at all. Just sit home meditating all day like they do. But Chuaning wasn't laughing. His expression looked terrible, and he was silent for a while before asking, "Every single person at Butterfly Town is dead?" "That's what I heard. Not a single survivor." ... Chuaning closed his eyes. Seeing his strange expression, the female disciple asked uneasily, "Elder?" The incident was not my doing, but it may have occurred because I was not sufficiently thorough in the exorcism. If I am indeed to blame, then I would not shirk my responsibility. Chuaning opened his eyes slowly. "Moran, let's go in." Inside Loyalty Hall, 12 lamps of coiling bronze lined the sides, each 10 feet in height with 9 layers of branches extending from the central stand, shorter toward the top and longer toward the bottom, for a total of 356 candle lanterns that lit up the main hall of Sisheng Peak so brightly that it practically looked like daytime. Xue Zhengyang, dressed in full martial attire, stood tall on the high platform of the hall, looking like an iron-cast statue as he stared down the people below with predator-like eyes. "Li Zhuangzhu, I'll say it one last time. Yu Heng Elder is not at the sect right now, and moreover, I can guarantee with my very life that what happened at Butterfly Town was not his doing. So quit throwing around all these baseless whatchamacallit." Next to him, Madame Wang whispered discreetly from behind the cover of her sleeve, "Allegations." Quit throwing all of these baseless whatchamacallit allegations." Xue Zhengyang declared with a grandly imposing sweep of his hand. Madame Wang, ... At this moment, Madame Wang, that she really did indeed marry a himbo. Not counting the guard disciples of Shisheng Peak, there were some 30-odd people standing in the hall, dressed in bluish-green robes, carrying horsetail whisks in their arms, and wearing Jinxiang-style hats on their heads, disciples from the recently established, up-and-coming Bitan sect of the Upper Cultivation Realm. The man at their head was about 50-some years old, with a pair of long whiskers that stuck out of the sides and drifted in the airflow like those of a catfish. It was none other than the leader of Bitan sect himself, Li Wuxin. Wuxin means heartless. Okay. A heartless challenger has appeared. Li Wuxin twirled his whisker as he sneered. "Xue Zhengmen, I'm only here to reason with you because your sect is yet considered a righteous one. The tragedy at Butterfly Town happened only after your Yu Heng Elder and his disciples went to perform exorcism. Other than the 3 of them, the Chen household had no contact whatsoever with any other cultivators. There is evidence and witness both. We have no choice but to admit fault in this matter." Xue Meng, standing next to his father, couldn't take it anymore and rebuked. "And what effing right do you lot even have to speak? When have you ever taken it upon yourselves to deal with any of the lower cultivation realm's problems? All you ever do is sit on your hands, trying to cultivate yourselves to immortality. But as soon as something happens, you immediately try to lay the blame on my Shijun. How is that fair?" Xue Gongzi. Instead of getting mad, Li Wuxin directed a meaningful gaze at him and smiled. "I've heard of you before, that people call you Son of the Phoenix, but meeting you in person today and witnessing your, poise and composure has certainly been a, shall we say, eye-opening experience." "You?" Li Wuxin rolled his eyes and turned back to Xue Zhengyang. "Xue Zhangmen, we of the Upper Cultivation Realm adhere strictly to the laws, and we intend to get to the bottom of this. If you really will not cooperate and hand over Yu Heng, Moran, and company, then I will have no choice but to go entreat the foremost sect in the cultivation world, Rufeng sect, to come take charge of the investigation." Xue Zhengyang's always had a fierce temper. He scoffed at the threat. "Oh, I'm well aware that your Bitan sect is chummy with Rufeng sect, but even if it was Nan-Gong Liu himself standing before me today, I'd still tell him the same thing. I will not hand them over. This has nothing to do with Yu Heng." Xue Meng followed up. "Well then, Li Zhuangzhu, kindly see yourselves out." see that? Did everyone see that? See how difficult and unreasonable they are? Aiding and abetting? A man's shaky voice suddenly burst forth from the crowd. The same thing happened back then, when that Mo guy stole my friend's things, and we came here courteously trying to seek justice. They just brushed us off and kicked us out just like this. Li Zhuangzhu, you saw it, right? If Shishong Peak is allowed to continue acting so outrageously above the law, the lower cultivation realm will be done for. He had barely finished talking when a quiet chuckle came from the entrance. Everyone turned collectively toward the gate. There, in a shadowed area not reached by the light, stood a blue-robed young man in light armor, leaning casually against the intricate carvings of the vermilion doorframe as he watched the scene within the hall with a languid expression. He was extremely handsome, skin supple and firm under the candlelight, practically glowing. I say, Chang Gongzi, when exactly have I ever stolen anything from your friend? His smile was soft and charming. Pray tell, that Rong-san, or was it Rong-ju? I can't remember. Anyway, that pretty boy, is he your friend? Or is he your paramour? Rather deceptive of you, huh? What if you hurt his feelings? The one with the woeful complaints was none other than that merchant Chang from Yizhou, the very same one who had declared that he wasn't done with Shishong Peak before. Chang Gongzi whipped his head around, startled to see Moran at first, but then something flickered in his eyes as he started howling in misery. Mo Wei you bastard! Ju-er and my friendship is of mortar and pestle, perfectly innocent. He's already met with such a tragic death at the hands of your fiendish ilk, yet you still dare slander his name? What? Moran's heart dropped, his eyes widening slightly. Rong-ju is dead? Chang Gongzi said angrily and tearfully, his parents are from Butterfly Town, and he met with misfortune while visiting home some days ago. That was how I found out about you and your Shizhuan's evil deeds, and why I went to lead Rong-ju for justice. But Moran's opinion of Rong-ju was the opposite of positive, so he only gave a curt wave of the hand after the initial shock had passed. Friendship of mortar and pestle? So like, you're the pestle and he's the mortar? Pound, pound, pound? Not sure how that's innocent, but okay. Moran! Chang Gongzi hadn't expected any of that and was quite affronted. You illiterate reprobate! You... Oh wow, my throat just got dry, okay. It was a bit much for Madame Wang, too. Only Xue Zhengyang blinked and said nothing. What mortar and pestle? Can't be anything good. He felt like his nephew's words made quite a lot of sense, actually. Nothing wrong with them. Also, here's explaining what mortar and pestle means. It's an idiom referring to people who are friends regardless of status or means, but the literal reading of the words is friendship of mortar and pestle. The idiom finds its origins in a story. During the Eastern Han Dynasty, a scholar named Gong Shamu, in order to raise enough money to attend the Imperial College, donned plain clothes and went to work at the residence of an official named Wu Yo, pounding rice using mortar and pestle. Wu Yo found him to be cultured and eloquent, and so made friends with him and paid for him to continue his education. Gong Shamu went on to become a principled and accomplished official. So pounding rice, that's where he was being dirty about it, okay. From the darkness of night came a sigh like the depths of mountains and the shattering of jade, like the melting of an icy lake, deep and indescribably lovely, and then a slender, well-proportioned hand delivered an unceremonious slap right on Moran's face. Ooh. Oh no, Moran's gonna get mad. Okay. Such obscenity. Friendship of mortar and pestle means a friendship that disregards status and means, like that between Gong Shamu and Wu Yo. Chuaning appeared at the door with a dark expression and a cross tone. What are you doing hanging around the door, being an embarrassment? Get the hell inside! Shizhuan! Shizhuan! Surprised and overjoyed to see him, Xue Meng and Shi Mei came forward to greet him, but Xue Zhengyang's eyes widened in irritation and exasperation both. Yu Heng, what are you doing back here all of a sudden? I wasn't expecting you to be back. I told our guests that you were away. How long were you planning to hold out by yourself if I didn't come back? Chuaning strode calmly into Loyalty Hall, his handsome face appearing almost immortal-like in grace and elegance under the candlelight. He came to a stop before the golden seat inside the hall and exchanged a nod with Xue Zhengyang before turning with a flourish of his wide sleeves. Chuaning of Shishong Peak, humble bearer of the title of Yu Heng Elder. It seems you have questions for me. I would not refuse you answers. Li Wuxin was staring in shock, but Chua Ning, phoenix eyes like smoke, spared him only a glance before continuing in an even tone. Kindly do enlighten me. Author's notes, mini theater. Each character asks to be enlightened. Okay. Chua Ning. Heard that everyone thinks that I don't have enough top energy. Huh. Please enlighten me. So yes, everyone collectively agrees that Chua Ning is a bottom. Sounds about right. Mo Wei Yu. Heard that everyone thinks that my bedroom skills aren't good enough. Huh? Please enlighten me. Xue Meng. Heard that everyone thinks that I'm not straight enough. Heh. Please enlighten me. So even Xue Meng acknowledges that people think that he's a little bent. Shimei. Heard that everyone thinks I'm a black-hearted lotus. Heh. Please enlighten me. You know, to be honest, I'm a little sus of Shimei. After that fake Gochen has a weird obsession with Shimei. Sounds suspicious. What do you guys think? Ye Wangxi. Heard that everyone thinks that I'm a girl. Heh, please enlighten me. Mei Han Shui. Heard that everyone thinks that I've already made an appearance in the novel. Heh, please enlighten me. Yeah, I think even though Mei Han Shui hasn't really formally made an appearance, everyone keeps talking about him that it feels as if he's already appeared. Meat Bun. That bro surnamed Mei at the end. No one thinks that you've already appeared. Heh, if you're not happy with that, come hit me. The author. Our dear Meat Bun being sassy. Okay, so to recap chapter 90, Moran decides to take a nice bath to kind of wash himself of his impure thoughts. Chua Ning wakes up and finds him in the bath and gets all flustered. And Moran, just by seeing his pretty Shidrun, gets a little feisty. His nether regions start to act up a little, and Moran's like, what's going on with me today? My emotions are so heightened. First I'm mad at him, and then I'm lusting after him. What the heck is going on? And then they make their way back to Sishan Peak by boat, and upon arriving there, it turns out that another sect, the Bitan sect, is here to accuse Shidrun and Moran of casting a demonic cultivation spell on Butterfly Town. And of course, the person that reported them was that dude, Chang something, who was the lover of Rongju, the prostitute that Moran had taken a fancy to at the beginning of the book. Apparently, Rongju had passed away when visiting his relatives at Butterfly Town, and that they believe it's a work of demonic cultivation. And they're thinking, well, the only cultivators that went there was Moran and Shidrun, so they are the prime suspects. But you know that they didn't do anything wrong. It was probably the fake Gochen behind it. Anyway, let's keep reading. Chapter 91. This venerable one's Shidrun is a pro. Upon the great hall, this man's glamorous robe was white as snow. He stood with his hands folded behind him, the silk of his robe soft and light like clouds, expansive sleeves reaching the ground. While his expression appeared solemn and dignified, his eyes were slightly lifted, the lashes draping down, amidst the politeness that were 3 parts scorn and 3 parts arrogance. Li Wuxin had never imagined that he was the Yuheng elder, and instantly his face dropped. He recognizes him. Chu. Chua Ning spoke calmly. Li Zhuangju, it's been a while. Why, is it you? Li Wuxin, who was only just clever-tongued now, couldn't utter a single word, his face paling like dry wax. We lost all communication with you after you left Rufeng sect, and here we thought you went to wander the world. Yet, who knew? You were actually casting pearls before swines. Chua Ning snorted, his eyes rather cool. Thank you for thinking that I am a pearl. ... Alright, enough small talk. Let's discuss serious matters. There's been word that you think that I've murdered the 500 civilians of Butterfly Town to practice evil spells. This incident was not done by me, but since Li Zhuangju has come all this way, I'm sure some things have already been misunderstood. I have more important things to attend to, so I won't accompany Zhuangju to the Tianyin Pavilion. If Zhuangju has any questions he wants to ask, please ask them here, now. Then, like he was too lazy to even stand, Chua Ning sat down in his seat. There's a designated seat for every elder within the Loyalty Hall. Chua Ning's seat was situated on Xue Zhengyang's left, lined with fine bamboo mat and draping with half a roll of bamboo screen. Compared to Lu Sun Elder's flowery seat beside his, filled wholly with fresh blossoms, it truly appeared much too meager and simple. In these past years, Chua Ning had never tried to purposefully conceal his name, but to say he kept a low profile wasn't wrong either. So while the younger generation of Bitan sect had heard of his name, they didn't know just how powerful he was. But Li Wuxin wasn't like them. He'd been around the block for years, so how could he not know about the infamous Yu Heng Elder? His fists clenched tightly in his sleeves, and he kept stealing glimpses at Chang Gongzi. If it wasn't that he had already accepted a lavish payment from the Chang family, how would he have gotten landed with this messy deal? At first he thought that Yu Heng Elder of Sisheng Peak was but some famous cultivator, yet who knew it turned out to be Chua Ning who hadn't shown his face? Had he known it was him, he would have never gotten himself roped into this mess no matter how much they paid him. Now he could neither proceed nor withdraw. What should he do? While Li Wuxin kept his expression schooled, he was miserable inside. Yet one of his direct disciples just had to be ignorant, thinking that it was this Yu Heng Elder who had been unreasonable, and his master who didn't know how to handle him. So he spoke up thinking he was being clever. "Elder Chu, you recently went to Butterfly Town to exorcise evil, correct?" Chua Ning raised his lashes and gave him a look. "That's correct." "Then, were you the one who sealed that ghost bride too?" "Are you speaking of Lo Xianxian?" Words died in that young man's throat. He had only known that the evil that went berserk in Butterfly Town was a ghost bride, but he didn't actually know more than that, so when Chua Ning returned the questions, he didn't have any responses. He turned red. "In any case, it's that ghost girl. Why do you have that many questions? She's young, about 15, 16. How many newlywed who died wrongly can there be in this small town?" The corner of Chua Ning's lips curled coldly. Butterfly Town has the custom of marrying the dead. There's at least 50 if not 100 ghost brides, so I really don't know which one you're speaking of. You... Cease that familiar address. How improper. Stand down now, you boorish disciple. After having scolded that disciple who wanted to stand out, Li Wuxin changed face completely to one that was pleasant and agreeable as he turned to Chua Ning. "Chu Zhongshi, it's the first time this disciple of mine has left a mountain. He doesn't know the rules, so please don't be hard on him. The ghost bride he spoke of is indeed that Lo Xianxian." Chua Ning furrowed his brows slightly. Lo Xianxian's resentful spirit went berserk? Indeed. Li Wuxin sighed. That ghost girl lost her mind. Never mind killing everyone in the Chen family, she went and slaughtered the entire town. By the time I led my disciples to go seal her, there was practically no one left in Butterfly Town still alive. "How can that be?" Chua Ning muttered. I had heard that the one who involved in this affair was Yu Heng Elder of Sisheng Peak. There's something questionable about this whole business, which was why we've come knocking. Besides, I've obtained 2 things while in Butterfly Town. Chu Zhongshi, please come examine them closer and see if they've aught to do with you. He retrieved the bloodied yellow silk cloth from his sleeve as he spoke, intending to hand it to Chua Ning. But unexpectedly, Xue Meng stepped forward and blocked him with an irritated hum. "I'll take it." My Shudrun likes to keep clean. He won't touch anything touched by outsiders." It was a bit of an exaggeration. Chua Ning wasn't actually germophobic. He just didn't like touching things stained by those he didn't like. Nonetheless, Chua Ning couldn't stand Li Wuxin in the first place, so he allowed Xue Meng to mess around without saying a word, and only lowered his lashes as he sipped the hot tea Shimei served. Li Wuxin swallowed his indignant anger since he couldn't do anything, and could only sneer as he passed the yellow silk to Xue Meng. Under the candlelight, all eyes were focused. Chua Ning shook open that silk cloth. He only took a glance and his face dropped. The passing service spell. That's right. Chu Zhongshi, based on my investigations, you were the one who temporarily sealed this resentful spirit, Lo Xianxian, and before you left, you gave a copy of this passing service spell to the only daughter of the Chen family, and told him to copy and recite it once a day for 10 years. Is that correct? That's correct. That passing service spell is in Chu Zhongshi's handwriting. Is that correct? That is indeed the case. But Chu Zhongshi, at the end of every passage of this passing service spell you've given, there are extra characters for a different spell. I trust you know what it is? Li Wuxin's voice was suddenly raised. Mark of the Returning Billows, a reversal spell. Every time people in the Chen family completed a copy of the passing service spell, they would then draw this reversal spell symbol, forcibly turning the spell that was meant to send off the dead into a spell that causes harm, encouraging the destruction of the seal until Lo Xianchen turned into a savage ghost and went berserk. Not a soul in the Chen family knew the ways of cultivation, so besides Yu Heng Elder, who personally gave them this silk cloth, I really can't think of a second person who could have taught them how to draw a spell this powerful. Watch your words, old man! Xuemeng was outraged. If my Shizhun wanted to kill them, why would he need to take such a huge detour? What spell? Reversal spell. Can't writings be forged? You think it's my Shizhun who drew it? Well, maybe I'm suspicious it's you, son of a bastard, who copied it in secret so you can frame people. Li Wuxin smiled without mirth. Xuemeng Zhongzi, what a youngin' like you doing interrupting when the elders are speaking? Xue Zhengyang spoke up. Li Zhuangju, isn't it a little far-fetched to say Yu Heng did this based on a silk cloth? My son is right. Handwriting can be imitated. If someone wanted to frame Yu Heng, they could simply copy his spell a few times and have it look similar. Then this begs the question of who Chu Zhongshi's arch-nemesis is, who'd go through all this just to harm him. Moran, who had been quiet on the side all this time, suddenly chuckled dryly. Li Wuxin looked at him, then recalled that this whole vulgar talk of mortar and pestle, and couldn't help but frown. What are you laughing about now? I'm laughing at how you're all so busy making speculations, but totally forgot about one thing. Xue Zhengyang, curiously. What thing, Ron What are you thinking? I'm not that well read, but it just so happens that I know a bit about this Mark of the Returning Billows, and I just so happen to know how to draw it. Moran laughed. Here, look, isn't this it? As he spoke, the tip of his finger gathered a smudge of red spiritual power, and while he leaned lazily against the pillar, the spiritual power spread intricately in midair, and soon, a sophisticated and exquisite Mark of the Returning Billows was reflected in the air, as pretty as fireworks. Xuemeng was shocked. You mutt? That's amazing! When did you learn this? Moran laughed. Huh, it's there in Shizhun's books. I thought it was interesting, so I memorized it. Then he casually pointed at that bright red spell, making it rise gradually into the sky, riding over the heads of all present. That red reversal mark glowed brilliantly, streaming bits of broken sparks. How's that? Why don't you all go ahead and compare this spell I drew with the one on that cloth? See if they don't look exactly the same. Is he trying to implicate himself? Moran, what are you doing? The disciples of Sicheng Peak all love a good spectacle, and when they saw Chuaning stoically tossing that silk cloth into the table, looking like he silently consented to Moran's method, they all immediately clambered over, crowding into a circle to compare the two in detail. Those from Bitan sect were all standing stiff at first, but afterwards they couldn't help but be curious themselves, some even hoping to pick faults, so they all gathered around too. All those people looked it over for a good while, and in the end came to one conclusion. What Moran drew was exactly the same as the spell in the silk cloth, almost as if they were done by the same person. Li Wuxin's idiot disciple from earlier spoke up again, completely shaken as he pointed at Moran. Good going, so you confess! You're the one who committed the murders, right? Moran, ... Chuaning spoke evenly. What's your name? Huh? You're asking me? The idiot disciple was taken aback. Then he stood tall, holding his head high and puffing his chest out, and proclaimed proudly, the 13th direct disciple of Wuxin, Zhen Kongming. Puh! Moran snorted. Chuaning, on the other hand, barely even reacted to very smart. After all, he himself had a name like Scare You to Death. He only said coolly, Young ones should learn to keep their mouths shut when the elders are speaking. These words were obviously mocking Li Wuxin's comment on Moran earlier, and when Li Wuxin heard, his face flushed the color of pig's liver. While he was extremely frustrated, there was nothing he could do, so he could only beat around the bush with a hump. Chu Zhongshi's disciples are certainly outstanding young men. What skill to be able to draw this spell exactly the same as Zhongshi does. Li Zhuangzhu, it's not just me. If you knew how to draw this spell, it'd look exactly the same as mine and Shizhun's too. What are you trying to say? Li Wuxin glared at Moran. Moran laughed. The strokes to the Mark of the Returning Billows are complicated. The level of skill, the heaviness of the ink, no element can be amiss. Which is why it doesn't matter who drew it. It'll all come out the same. This has absolutely nothing to do with writing style. If a drawing is even slightly off, the spell won't work. Complete nonsense. To be corrected by a junior before a crowd, Li Wuxin couldn't help but become outraged from embarrassment, all the hairs of his beard standing on end. What spell in this world would require such trickiness? I may not have ever practiced this spell, but I know that's all complete nonsense. Don't go making things up, you little bastard. He's not making things up. He's not making anything up. Li Wuxin was already at the end of his patience now, and he exclaimed in anger, Chu Wanning, you're speaking without proof. How would you know? How can you know? The flaws and weaknesses of a spell are usually known only to its creator. Do you dare proclaim yourself the creator of the Mark of the Returning Billows? Chu Wanning lifted his eyes and gazed towards him stoically, then took another sip of tea before replying leisurely. Daren't I? Then I'll tell it to you now. Li Wuxin, huh? I created the Mark of the Returning Billows. Li Wuxin, ... Ha! You tell him, Shijun. He's gobsmacked. Nothing to say. Okay, author's notes. The crazy nicknames of various characters. Chu Wanning, Sha Sini, homophone for scare you to death. Moran, Zhong Guanggong, homophone for loyal dog tops. Shuemeng, Bu Zilian, homophone for not self-obsessed. Shimei, Zhan Bailian, homophone for real white lotus. Ye Wangxi, Nan Haizi, homophone for boy. And Mei Han Shui, Bu Haozi, homophone for not lecherous. Okay. So are they being ironic here? These nicknames are supposed to be ironic. Okay. Or sarcastic? Satire, right? Okay, end of chapter 91. So to recap, Chu Wanning and Moran make themselves present, make themselves known. They're gonna tackle the allegations head on. And Chu Wanning, of course, is proud. He sits down on his throne and looks down on Li Wuxin, saying, what evidence do you have exactly? So they're like, well, there's this spell that you made the Chen family copy. This is your handwriting, is it not? And Chu Wanning's like, yeah, it is. Moran's like, yeah, I can write that too. Look, I can write that spell exactly the same way in the same handwriting, so you can't prove whether it was I or Shijun who did it. Actually, anyone who performs this spell has to write it the exact same way or the spell won't work. And then the guy's like, how do you know? How do you know that this is exactly how the spell is supposed to look like? Chu Wanning says, because I'm the one who created this spell. How you like that? Yeah, Shijun, you tell him. So, wow, the plot thickens. Is the fake Go Chen the one responsible behind the massacre of Butterfly Town? Is he the one that turned Xian Xian into a vengeful spirit again? He's the one that unlocked her? I wouldn't put it past him. He seems to be the big boss right now. But how is Moran and Chu Wanning gonna get themselves out of the situation? We're gonna have to wait until next time. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's read-along, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye!